Well, as we all know, and everyone has been following what has been going on in Ukraine with the war between Russia and Ukraine, the Russian invasion of Ukraine itself. And we have an opportunity here to speak with someone who, well, has firsthand knowledge in one aspect, but also was able to get out during the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Antonina Broyaka, who is the former dean of the Faculty of Economics and Business at the Vinnytsia National Agraian University in Ukraine, but she's also a visiting professor at the K-State Department of Agricultural Economics. And we're also joined by Dr. Alan Featherstone, the head of the Department of Ag Economics at Kansas State University, but he's also the director of the Master of Agribusiness Program at Kansas State University. We appreciate you both joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, one thing we want to preface by this, if you are listening to this interview or watching this interview, that we have recorded this interview on June the 6th. So when this runs anytime after that, this was of the events as of June 6th itself. Professor Broyaka, I want to start with you first. And the history, you actually have a history with Kansas State University. This is going back to, and correct me if I'm wrong, 2004 and 2005, when you actually came to Kansas State University.
Yes. I've been to Kansas State University at 2004, 2005. I was as junior faculty within junior faculty development program runs by Fulbright program, and I was as a visiting professor, young professor at this department, agricultural economic department at Kansas State University.
So, Dr. Featherstone, do you remember her when she was there in 2004, 2005?
Yes, I do remember her being on the faculty. I think at the time she was looking more at our extension system and trying to understand some lessons that she could maybe take and apply within Ukraine.
Well, let's go back then to where you were at as the former dean of the Faculty of Economics and Business at the Vinnytsia National Agraian University in Ukraine. So your position there, what kind of a university was that in Ukraine?
That is a pretty big university, well-known university. That is agricultural school that has different specialties. That is big university. Totally together with all colleges, we had around 12,000 students. My department had several specialties like economics, bachelor degree, master degree, PhD degree. We had entrepreneurship, trade, and foreign stock exchange. We had computer science, tourism, hotel and restaurant business. So different specialties in my department that I was dean. But also we have under the umbrella of the university, we have several departments, several faculties, how we call it, agronomy, mechanization, like technologies. We have livestock, bookkeeping, finance, management, etc.
You know, we've heard a lot in agriculture and hearing about Ukraine and really being a breadbasket in that area. Did you have a lot of students that were interested in being a part of agriculture, being an agronomist at the university there?
Yeah. Actually, since university is agricultural, so we mostly study even economics in the sphere of agriculture. So all my researches and all my publications are related to agricultural sphere mostly.
Well, let's get up to the present time because of everything that has been going on. Before I ask you about your story of leaving Ukraine and coming here, can you give people you don't have to go into the whole history, obviously, but some of the history between Russia and Ukraine? Obviously, Ukraine was a part of the Soviet bloc at one time, but have been independent for quite some time, away from now Russia itself. But there's been a long-standing history between these two countries.
Yeah, no, in like before Ukraine was a part of Soviet Union, but before that time, before we call that it was like a revolution in 1917. Before that, Ukraine was an independent country, and after that, when the USSR was created, Bolsheviks just took Ukraine, forced it to be a part of the Soviet Union. And it was lasting till 1992. And when USSR was fell on a parts, like for 15 separated countries, as was before 15 independent countries. So we got our independence. And since that time, we were trying to build our new country, but the history of Ukraine is really, really big and old, because Kiev as a city was established much more earlier than Moscow even. So Ukraine has a really long history, and our post-Soviet time is kind of 30 years. And all this time we try to build our economy and be more close to Europe, since we are geographically actually the middle of Europe is in Carpathian Mountains, that is in Ukraine. So Ukraine is geographically middle of Europe, and we wanted to be a part of European Union, and we are pretty developed country. We have a lot of different industries. Of course, agriculture is our main industry, but it grows quickly, and we placed top position in the world production and world export on several products. So
Absolutely. Now, let's lead up to the events of leading up to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We say Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but this has been going on for quite some time, with Russia taking Crimea and other parts of Ukraine, which are Crimea, which is in Ukraine itself. So this isn't anything new. This wasn't anything sudden. Obviously, this has been something that's been going on for several years.
yeah, that is true. This continues since 2014. And Russia started this invasion at that time, and they occupied Crimea and the part of Donbass. And it's already 8 years we tried to get our territory back, but they think that they bring us Russian peace because they want to be Russian-speaking people free. But everybody in Ukraine knows Russian because we were obligated to learn it. Everybody in Soviet Union was obligated to learn Russian. So that's why we know Russian, but it nothing to do with our nationality. So we're all Ukrainians and we know Ukrainian. And that is just artificial thing,
I can't imagine the decisions you've had to do when the invasion came in, and obviously you decided to leave, and that you have two children as well. That had to be a very hard experience, knowing that your husband was still going to be in, because he's obviously helping out in any way he can with the effort there in Ukraine. Take us back to the decision making, and then obviously trekking to eventually when you went to Poland.
It was a really difficult decision, but we made it very quickly. It was no time to think about. The war started, as you know, on 24th of February, and we woke up because of sounds of bombing in our city. And we couldn't believe that is true. We thought that is kind of mistake and it is not real. But every channel was showing that the war started. It was difficult and we couldn't understand what to do. And it was like each city had some bombing at the same time. And missiles my colleagues just going to the university just saw the missile flying under his head. That was scared. And I needed to go to the university to work. And I took my children with me because I was afraid to leave them at home. And we stayed all the time when sirens went in shelter, and we slept in shelter several days. And when the invasion went to, Russians started to force Kiev, my husband told that you need to go, just keep children safe. And it's really dangerous for children. We want a better life for children and to be sure that they will be in safe place. So my husband was driven us as much possible to Polish border. And it was huge line there. It's difficult even think about that. It was really hard. So it took us several days to cross the border. And we walked with children across the border.
So I'm going to ask a real obvious question then. You get to Poland. I mean, there's probably several more steps into this, but you're in Manhattan, Kansas now at Kansas State University. So I guess the long story conglomerated into a short story. How did you make the connection, or how did you end up at Kansas State University as a visiting professor?
I think that is I'm really grateful to all people who are here, especially, first of all, to university faculty members, especially to Alan and some other people who already retired, but still have very close connection to university. And a special thanks that is for Sherilyn Fleming Jackson, who is also extension specialist at Kansas State University, who started just sending me a lot of messages. I got messages from Sherilyn, from Forrest Chamley. I got a message from Alan. I got message from Ernie Minton, who is the Dean of College of Agriculture, and a lot of other people from Stephen Graham, a lot of other people whom I knew from my period here. So they just started all together sent me messages that, Antonina, just come. We can help you. If you have any chance to come, just do it. So I really appreciate all help and all support and all willingness of Kansas State University to help me in my situation.
Dr. Featherstone, this is where we bring you in. As Professor Broyaka talked about, so many people gave her messages, and I'm sure mobilizing any type of effort to get her here, you had to be heavily involved in.
Certainly, her circle of acquaintances that she knew in 2004, 2005 were key in terms of getting her here. And then once she was here, the opportunity to have someone that understands the conflict going on in the agricultural system in Ukraine was very valuable. And so actually today, June 6th, she received message that her work permit has been approved. And so the goal will allow her to come on staff and have a full colleague relationship with our department and interact very much from a professional standpoint. And so there's been a number of individuals that were instrumental in bringing her to Kansas and helping her through the transition. Again, everything from helping her get her children enrolled in the school districts here to giving her a place to live and helping her financially until we can get her on the payroll at the university.
Dr. Featherstone, there's probably a good and bad point to that. Good in the aspect that's exciting to hear that, she can be officially a member of the faculty to provide such a unique perspective. But at the same time, it's because of that unique perspective that she provides that makes it hard too.
No, it really does. It's kind of good and bad in terms of, I think her desire would be for peace in Ukraine and that she could go back to her life there. But certainly in this turmoil, her understanding of the agricultural system has been very valuable in terms of just helping us educate our clientele from a industry perspective. And so she does bring that unique perspective to help producers in Kansas and across the state understand what's going on and how they might be making decisions on their own operations due to this conflict.
Before we get into the heavy part concerning how it's affecting agriculture, Antonina, wanted to ask, you talked about the university and bringing your kids to the university leading up to the invasion when it came in. Do you know if the university has suffered any damage at all?
No, my university doesn't have any damage, and it continues to work mostly distance remotely. So faculty members continue to teach distant remotely online. So we try to operate as much as possible. So actually, the latest statement from the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine was to start educational process, to continue educational process if it's possible. So my daughter also graduated from school in Ukraine, back in Ukraine. She graduated from 9th grade, what is middle school in Ukraine. So, and she got her certificate. She studied at night, actually, because of time difference. Yeah.
And one final thing before we get into the agriculture side, Volodymyr, your husband, do you hear, how much are you able to make contact or be able to speak with him?
Oh, we speak with him from time to time through internet using all different devices, and he's good as much as possible. I mean that he is in a safe place, but he volunteers a lot, and he helped a lot of people to move from Kiev, from Sumy, and he was driven them to border to Poland, to Moldova. He also helped a lot with humanitarian aid to supply to those dangerous region. He was helping with buying vehicles and deliver them on the more dangerous parts that people would need. So he volunteers a lot.
And can you, we can see it via media reports of the spirit of the people in Ukraine. But how do you describe it? How would you describe it as a native Ukrainian? How would you describe what you have seen of the spirit of the people there in Ukraine, people that you know, your husband and others, as they have gone through this?
I would tell you definitely that people believe that we will win that war because the truth is on our side. That is our land. That is our motherland, so we should win because there is no other way, and people are really doing everything that they could to bring this win to us, this victory to us. And of course, a lot of people left Ukraine, especially women with children, like I did, but all men, mostly in Ukraine, not because they are obligated to serve in army since from age 18 till the age 60, and they cannot leave the country. But a lot of men who was abroad, they return to Ukraine to defend the country because they think that is what they need to do. So we are really optimistic about that we will win this country. And, Russia was expecting to get Ukraine in 3 days, and already is more than 100 days. And we're still fighting, and we will do it till we liberate all our land, including Donbass and Crimea.
Antonina Broyaka, former Dean of the Faculty of Economics and Business at the Vinnytsia National Agraian University in Ukraine and visiting professor at the K-State Department of Agricultural Economics, is joining us, as well as Dr. Alan Featherstone, head of the Department of Agricultural Economics and director of the Master in Agribusiness Program at Kansas State University, in our special interview today. Now let's focus in on agriculture and the effects. And Dr. Featherstone, I'm going to start with you. Obviously, we have seen some effects, but still so many remaining effects that are going to be, as far as what we're going to see and how things are being affected, with regards to the world ag supply, where, what Ukraine gets, or what Ukraine produces, and where it's going, or if it's going to be able to go anywhere too.
No, certainly the conflict has created many ramifications from a global perspective. The two markets that hit the most are the agricultural market and the energy markets. From an agricultural perspective, once the Soviet Union disbanded, it took both Russia and Ukraine a while to get their agricultural system going. But throughout time, Ukraine is a major player in the export market, exporting about 10% of the world's wheat. They export 14% of the world's corn, and about 40% of the world's sunflower oil. And so they really play a large role with regards to this. The other thing that's unique about Ukraine is they primarily produce for exports. In terms of, if you look at their production, in most commodities, they're probably exporting more than 50% of what they produce. And so Ukraine has been built around the ability to export out of the Black Sea region through Turkey into the Mediterranean and then to the rest of the world. And the soils and production capabilities are such that they can produce much more than they need to supply their own population.
Antonina, how do you feel agriculture has been affected so far from what we have seen?
Of course, the situation with Black Sea ports, that they've been blocked by Russian vessels and mines that are in water. So the blocking ports just doesn't have a chance to export as much as we could. Like the capacity of our seaports, it would be up to 8 million tons per month. Usually we exported like 5 to 6 tons per month through seaports of agricultural products, but now all the ports blocked, and the only way is to go by railway or by roads to Europe, or using 3 small ports in how you pronounce Dunai River.
Yeah.
The Dunai River. So, but also we lost a lot of grain that was stolen, actually, from the region of Kherson, from Zaporizhia, and Russians do it officially. I saw on some internet services some official document that says that they are allowed to take that grain to improve their food security in Russia, because they don't have enough food, so they just steal it. And according to the latest assumption, it was stolen at least 500,000 tons of grain, and already like 10 vessel left Black Sea with the stolen grain and moved to other countries. Some countries didn't allow those vessels, but some do. And the latest discussion is about visit of African president of, I don't remember the country, sorry, his meeting with Putin, and discussion about that they don't care where the grain is coming from because they have food shortage. So and our point of view is a little bit different. Yes, of course, we don't want people to starve, to get hungry, but that is a power of those even African countries to say that just Russia stop the war, and that's it, But that was a plan, and I was telling people from the very beginning of the war, and somebody even couldn't believe me that Russia is going to use this situation, this war, as a food weapon, and they will blackmail those import-independent countries to be on their side because of food shortage. So, and now after 3 months, it's happened. Yeah. So
indeed. Yeah, indeed. And Dr. Featherstone, I think it's been proven through history that food is a driver in a time of war, or a cause in some aspects in a time of war too.
No, certainly that's the case. In terms of, if you go back to the World War I and World War II era, in terms of the Turkish Straits at the bottom of the Black Sea on the map were very important.
Bosphorus and
the Bosphorus and Danellis were very important in World War I, and certainly there's indications that part of World War II was attempting to acquire the Ukrainian soils to feed the German population. And so, again, the quality of the soils in that are very valuable from a food security perspective. And during World War II, they fed much of the Moscow region.
Yet the exports across the world has been in an upheaval in so many ways, or partners finding new partners, or whatever the case may be. I won't say it's changed the game, but boy, it's turned it upside down on its head in so many ways.
No, certainly that's the case. Wheat is much more of a competitive market. There's many regions that have the ability to produce wheat, and so it's shifting, and going to cause a shift in terms of where countries find wheat until the conflict is resolved. The other thing with regards to corn is a big issue too, with regards to Ukraine, and just the importance of corn. Basically, over the last 15 years, Ukraine went from exporting no corn to being a major player.
Number four
with regards to the corn export market. And so the production that's on the ground, it appears that planting has maybe went ahead of what expectations were when the war first broke out. But there's a lot of grain in storage that's going to have to be moved before the wheat crop starts coming in. Their wheat crop's a little bit later than it is in Kansas, probably middle to late July into the August period. And then they're going to have the fall crops come in. And so storage is going to be pretty important and will have big ramifications if they can't move grain here in the next month or so to the world market. And so even though the production may be there, perhaps it'll be harvested if there's enough diesel and enough labor. But then storage is going to be a huge issue with regards to Ukraine if the current grain in storage is not moved out of the country.
Yeah, that is the issue.
And let me ask that, Antonina. In that aspect, is there any grain that is moving at all, probably via road, maybe via rail, which may be the only two ways? Do you know of any that is being moved out of those Ukraine ports?
Yeah, some of grain, just as I told, goes through those 3 river ports that are in Odessa region, but not through the Black Sea. But the grain that was driven to like other countries, European countries, some of them already were delivered through some other ports like Constanța in Romania and some other ports. So if we will get to other European country and we will have chance to use their ports, seaports facilities, so we would be able also to deliver. But the point is that the capacity for railroad and roads much less, like up to 1 million ton per month.
So obviously not alleviating the storage issue at all that is currently there in those grain ports.
Yeah.
And the other issue is that the gauge of the railroads, when it crosses countries, there's issues there that there are figures that Antonina has provided that indicate that sometimes it takes 25, 30 days for grain to cross the borders and to be moved with regards to changing the wheels on the railroads to move it through another European country. I think the other issue that is going to be very important is whether or not those ports, even though they're going to seaports, whether or not they're going to have the capacity to handle much of the Ukrainian grain, given the grain that's already there produced in Poland or Romania or Moldova, some of the surrounding countries.
And I guess, Antonina, the quote unquote wild card in this is what Russia controls already as far as the Black Sea region is concerned. If it expands further, and God willing it doesn't, but if it expands further, then that could change the situation too.
Yes, but we hope that it will not happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know that some other countries also work on that issue with Ukraine to try to start export from Ukraine, but Russia wants the sanctions that they got to be lifted.
Antonina, let me ask, and as Dr. Featherstone mentioned earlier, that planning, believe, has gotten underway, but maybe a little quicker or a lot more into it. But he mentioned maybe problems of diesel supplies and other things as well. Is that becoming a serious issue on some shortages of items like that?
Yeah, the shortage of gasoline and diesel exists, and a lot of gas stations have just huge line. You can stay like 6 hours to get your 20 the most liters, but usually it would be 10 to 15 liters, not more for now, and you can stay whole day to get this gasoline. But our government tries to support farmers, and they have priority to get diesel because they need it, for example, to sow, to plant, so they got the necessary fuel.
Jokingly, I'll ask this. I'm sure you've heard many there within the faculty or students or whoever complaining about the price of gasoline and diesel. Compared to Ukraine, how is the price you see in the United States compared to Ukraine?
It's much lower. Yeah, like currently, of course we have liters and we have metric system. So compared to American price, the gallon of diesel current or fuel would be around $10.
Yes, much lower, much lower than, most definitely. All right, we're talking with Antonina Broyaka, who is the former dean of the Faculty of Economics and Business at the Vinnytsia National Agraian University in Ukraine. She's also a visiting professor at the K-State Department of Agricultural Economics. And Dr. Alan Featherstone is joining us, head of the Department of Ag Economics and the director of Master in Agribusiness Program at Kansas State University. And Dr. Featherstone, you know, we look at what we see with our grain prices that we see in the U.S., what we see with our ag economy, but then what we see with input costs, and input costs that unfortunately are not going down anytime soon. So, you know, we get with our wheat, we get wheat that is poor condition but great protein. We get wheat out of our ears, we get lower protein. In this case, we get high prices for grains, but we get the high input prices too.
No, it's certainly an issue, and it'll probably be more of an issue going into 23. Many farmers, because of the profitability of 2021, went ahead and purchased inputs, and there is the ability to do fuel contracts ahead. And so in some respects, farmers will be relatively good in 22, but once they start putting in the fall 23 wheat crop, or the summer 23 wheat crop in the fall of 22, and then as we go into 2023, it could be very difficult with the increased prices for diesel and fertilizer and other inputs.
And Antonina, how, if you had a chance to speak with a Kansas farmer, what kind of message would you have of how what is going on currently in Ukraine could affect that Kansas producer?
In global issue, I think the situation in Ukraine have influence on all of us and Kansas farmers as well, because of, first of all, of price issue, that the price goes up. And it's not only for grain, but also for inputs, as Alan told. But of course, to protect some import-independent country, probably there is necessity to try to produce more and export more, so that Russia wouldn't have too much power for blackmail people and other countries on food issues.
And Dr. Featherstone, you mentioned what it could be next year, how it's going to affect. And for what we see in agriculture right now, with the volatility on the prices, the volatility on the input cost, you hate to say, but it's reality. This isn't going to end anytime soon on this type of volatility.
No, it really isn't. And just to give an indication of what's happened to wheat prices since about the 1st of February, wheat was trading $7.88 a bushel. The day before the war started, February 23rd, it was $9.16. And while we're about $11.20 today, it's been as high as $13.70. And so essentially you can just see in terms of what the lead up to the war did to the price of the wheat. And then once the war broke out, certainly been major effects. And in terms of once the war ends, in some respects, I think there's going to be volatility on the downside, and that's one of the things with the high price cost structure that we have built in is one of the things I think that the Kansas farmer is going to have to think about as they look forward to 23 and maybe 24.
Antonina, I'm going to let you have the final word here. You had the message to the Kansas producer, but just to people in general who are watching this take place on television, reading about it on the internet, whatever the case may be, what is your message to people out there about what is going on, and just, you know, what would you tell people?
What I would like to tell people that you are lucky that you don't know what is a war, really, that you didn't have real war on your land, and we just ask to support Ukraine. And believe me, you don't see on TV or you don't hear on radio everything what is going on. That is much more worse than you can see on TV. And I just ask for support, just to support Ukraine and believe that the war is real, and we fight not only for our independence, we are fighting for democracy, we are fighting for all people in the world, because if Russia will get power, they will go further.
All right. Well, Dr. Featherstone, I appreciate you coming on to the program to discuss this with Antonina, and so I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Antonina, it's been an honor to be able to speak with you. God bless to you and also your husband back in Ukraine. We hope everything goes well, that you're one day soon be able to turn back to Ukraine.
Thank you.
That is Antonina Broyaka, former Dean of the Faculty of Economics and Business at the Vinnytsia National Agraian University in Ukraine and visiting professor at the K-State Department of Ag Economics, and Dr. Alan Featherstone, head of the Department of Ag Economics and director of the Master in Agribusiness Program at Kansas State University. We appreciate you joining us.